Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. I think some more people might trickle in as we get going. So we're glad to have the Whammy region here. We got a couple of people who are chatting or zooming in with us, so that's pretty cool. So for those of you out in Whammy land, just type in any questions you might have for Jonah, and I'll ask them on your behalf. But if you are zooming in, the technology department told us to make sure you mute your own personal computers. There's no feedback. Okay, so I'm happy on behalf of the Emergency Medicine and Wilderness Medicine Interest Group to introduce and have Jonah here. He drove all the way over from Leavenworth, Washington, and he's definitely the person to have speak on 10 essentials of first aid gear. He's been a lead EMT instructor for a local company, Remote Medical International, for a good while now. Adventures in place pretty hard in the mountains, so he'll be able to give you some insight into some experiential-based recommendations of what you need in your pack. And yeah, he'll probably just walk us through that. So questions throughout, you want to stay to the end? Throughout. Okay. All right. So go ahead and take it away. We have about an hour, 55 minutes or an hour or so.
Sweet. All right, guys. So I'm actually really happy to be here. Been from Toronto for a long time. Had some interactions with some of your programs in the past. And living in Washington, and for the group of us, I guess we're here, just the general Northwest, at large, it's just one of the best places in the world to recreate. A lot of people travel around the world, go to New Zealand, like, this is a magic spot. What's the place closer to home that I could live in that's like New Zealand? And a lot of us wind up here in the Northwest. So we have an excellent place to be getting out and to getting exercise, relaxation, positive experience. It's right outside of our back door. However, you guys as a group are here because you're also interested in medicine. And you have careers sort of, looking ahead goals that you're trying to accomplish in that field, so you have tools to help other people. And so what I hope I can convey over the next 53 minutes is a sense of how you can take some of your passion of, spending some time outside with an understanding of medical necessity, and I'm going to sort of bridge that with emergency response. And what things we've taken for granted, what things we live with all the time in our sort of modern society, that as soon as I do walk out on that trail, all of a sudden I'm leaving those things behind. How do I be prepared? How do I take the education that I have and an understanding of basic risk and hazard and apply it in an environment that is no longer providing me the tools that I need to be able to do so. So this obviously is a topic that can be sort of expounded upon at great length, and you could dork out and talk about new tools and equipment and specialized gizmos, and that is absolutely not what we're going to do for the next 15 minutes. If I'm talking about anything that I own, it's simply out of necessity of providing an example that has served me, which is I'm going to have different needs, presumably, than the rest of you. If this ever doesn't sort of transcend, say, hey, what is this? How do I accomplish the same goals for my needs? That's really what you're going to find on the board. Isn't an itemized list of the things that you need to put in your backpack, but a philosophy and methodology by which you now can apply logic to creating your own tools. On the one hand, to prevent problems, which is the better half of this lecture, and then the tools to be able to respond to either a minor accident, which is what most first aid kits have been designed for historically, or more importantly, to treat life threats in an environment where there isn't any other assets to do that for us. That really should be our first priority, and also gives us one of our real big kind of contingent points. How do we do that effectively and still need the capacity to carry some of that stuff in maybe a pack as small as this? But we have some real-world limitations on how we're going to apply some of what we're talking about. And those are the decisions you're all going to have to make for yourselves. So to get started, what we want to be thinking about is the reality of setting foot in a wilderness area. Because not knowing you and not knowing your background, we're all coming from different experiences. But the reality is, in working in rescue, that most people have a misconception of just what it is that we're leaving behind. Right? We have essentially like a 10-minute response time. So if someone calls 911, We can have people with advanced medical training to be able to assess life risk, which is essentially what EMTs and paramedics are trained to do. Okay, what's going to kill this person in the next 5 minutes? Find that out really quickly, and then I'm going to treat that aggressively, and then we're going to transport the people who have highest levels of care to be able to manage the entire cacophony of problems that might be associated with a present life threat. As soon as we go into the backcountry, which is anytime we leave the trail, those responders have no legal necessity to be able to respond. That's not what they're trained for. They're urban responders. And so as soon as we start walking down a trail, an entirely different system gets put into play. Going from essentially a SAR deputy, a search and rescue sheriff, who then initiates emergency response from people like a SAR team, search and rescue, a mountain rescue team, other resources that are essentially volunteer responders who have some interest in being able to backpack and hike. So they have much more limited medical training and will find very limited resources. We also have helicopters and dogs and horses and 4x4 and all these other tools, but the bottom line is that they're slow. And depending on how far out you are, you're looking at much longer response time. So I said 10 minutes for a paramedic to get to you. You have a golden hour of the time which often people can compensate when we're trying to get most medical interventions done within. In the wilderness, we're looking at 8-hour rescues, very common. It's a huge window. So the point is we don't want to be involved in that, and we need to recognize the reality of those risks, those hazards, every time we set foot out. There's a great book called Deep Survival, where a guy who is essentially chronicles all of this type of stuff, looks at just how people manage risk, and he was one time he was driving through Glacier National Park, and just decided to get out and just stretch his legs, go out to an overlook, carried nothing, wearing a cotton t-shirt, pair of pants, goes up the trail, passes the trail, goes up, fog moves in, oh, how pretty, walking back down the trail, passes the trail that he had started on, keeps walking, realizes that he's walked way too far. Now it's 30 degrees, sleeting, he's wearing a cotton t-shirt, and he's lost. Right? This was essentially a professional. How easy it is for us to wind up in significantly hazardous situations. And how do we manage this sort of mentation of recognizing every time I go out, how do I make sure that this isn't the time I get myself in trouble? I used to be a long-distance solo sailor. And the rule that you live by in that environment, you sort of make it up that everyone finds their way there, called the 1% rule. There's certain things that you manage every single time. And for me, it was essentially a strange sound. You heard a weird noise in the rigging. Didn't matter whether you're sleeping or whether you're tired or whether you're busy doing something else. You always want to investigate it every time. In my career, it never turned out to be anything serious. But the point is that the one time that it is something serious, it means that your mast is about to fall over. It's then going to ram into your boat and put a hole in it. Then you're going to sink, and you're probably going to die. So the 1 in 1,000 chance of that noise being something serious meant that every single time you had to act like it was the time that it might come up, that part was built. And this is exactly the same situation that we all live in when we walk out on a trailhead. People go hiking and running and they'll get themselves really wet. It doesn't matter. You're moving your body. You'll probably make it back to the trailhead. Everything is fine until you allow yourself to get wet. Then you sprain your ankle on the way home. And now you're 60 years old. You've been doing it this way for 40 years. But now you sprain your ankle. Now you can't get back to the trailhead. Now you're wet. Now you're cold. Then you're hypothermic. And now you're at risk of dying of exposure. So we prevent that random scenario by being prepared on a daily basis. And that's why this lecture has value and importance. Because I know some guys who are pretty serious outdoor athletes, and their mantra is light and fast, light and fast, light and fast. And the tools they go without kind of boggle my mind. I feel like they really focus on the task at hand, the day in front of them. Today, nothing is going to happen. And as a sailor, it's like, man, today is the day it's going to happen. Is my attitude. Today is the day that everything matters. So putting risk right in front of you instead of somewhere out in the future is an attitude that helps you apply some of these tools. Because really what we're starting with is the concept of the 10 essentials, which has everything to do with being prepared today so that I'm performing properly so that things don't ever go wrong. So this whole concept of the 10 essentials is bred out of Seattle. Arguably back in the 50s, can't quote anything like that, but the Mountaineers were a club that started here who came up with a sort of a climbing curriculum that became known as the Freedom of the Hills, which is now one of the seminal texts of mountaineering. Anyone who wants to get into is using the things that we already have for many different purposes. We're all carrying our phone, and our phone's going to be important, particularly for this one now, communication. But without adding any weight and almost no cost, you can also have a good chance to navigate it because it works off a very faint signal, and it's something we already have, and some of the software is very good. So we're accomplishing a lot of things with one tool. Does that mean I don't carry a compass? No. But I can make that designation for myself. Because if I'm trail running, I'm not going to carry a compass. If I'm backpacking, I probably will. Those are the spectrum of, am I carrying a lot of stuff because I can, or am I carrying the absolute minimum because of the activity involved? Those are decisions we'll have to make, and we'll kind of get to it. But navigation is the idea that as soon as I set off, I have to be able to get back here. Do I know right where my car is? Because if I can't get back to it, I could get hosed. Sun protection. How many options do we have for this?
Sunglasses, sunscreen, hat, or other clothing.
Yeah, we're going to have to solve the problem our way. If you have skin like mine, you're going to carry a lot of really strong sunscreen. Just the way of it. You know, hats, sunglasses. This is the Pacific Northwest. So for us specifically, we can bet on the fact that our weather is going to be everything from 85 degrees to sub 30 in the same day. We can go from sun to raining and sun to snow in the same day. We have the extreme gamut of weather conditions and sort of physical topography. We have it all here. And so really, when we go to a desert environment or to a tropical environment, we're going to tweak a little bit. But for us, we get the whole kit and caboodle. So key point, these are the things that we want to be prepared with. Navigation, probably going to use our phone, map, and compass, depending if we're particularly backpacking. But we need something to get us back to the car. Sun protection, we have snow all over all over the Northwest. We're always going to need sunglasses, regardless of whether we expect rain for the next 3 weeks. But it's also systems. Along the same line, protecting from the sun is protecting from hot and cold. So you'll never see someone who's traveling for any particular period of time in the backcountry who's not carrying both a shell, something to protect yourself from rain, and insulation to be able to keep them warm. Why is it really so important that we do that? we thought through why a rain shell and insulation were kind of critical components. Because as medical students, you're going to like physiology. What is it that we're doing outside that makes it necessary to change what we're wearing? Sometimes. Sometimes we're not. Right? So we're hiking up a mountain, but do we stay moving at the same pace the whole time? No. We're stopping. And what happens when we're exercising? We're building heat. So we might dress really lightly, but as soon as we stop, we're dumping heat. Because now maybe we've been sweating. Now that sweat's going to work against us. It's going to start making sort of convective heat loss would be one way. Because anytime we have water, that's one of the body's tools for losing heat. So we have this fluctuation in our core temperature, which is essentially making us vulnerable to an accident anywhere in that progress where you're going up and down. Right? You want to try to keep it maintained as much as possible. So when I'm moving my body, I want to be dressed as lightly as possible so that I'm not over-generating heat, because I don't want to sweat, because that's what's going to work against me. But as soon as I stop, the thing I probably want on the top of my pack is some kind of insulating layer. So that heat that I have generated, I am now preserving. So I'm flattening out that line of going up and down. This is really critical because we're getting into sort of our performance, which we want to talk about prevention. You're not going to find it's not something we can pack, but prioritizing our ability to perform in the backcountry is one of the best things that we can do to keep ourselves safe. So performance has to do with how I dress. I'm not going to wear cotton because it blows heat when it gets wet. Synthetic fibers do a great job of maintaining some of their insulative properties even when they get sweaty, or if I don't put my jacket on in the sleet or the rain or the snow, it's going to give me a better chance of doing well. Light footwear. We don't need big honking boots unless we're either kicking steps in the snow or I'm carrying more than 40 pounds on my back. Pay attention to your history of ankle injuries. If you don't have a lot of ankle injuries in your history, consider wearing lighter footwear. 1 pound on your foot equals about 7 pounds on your back. Because ultimately, endurance and physical capacity can get you out of the mountain safely. And it keeps you warmer, and it keeps you from overheating. So, along with the way that we dress, taking a sip of water and taking invited food are going to keep your body generating heat and functioning properly. Those are doing the best things that we can do to make sure that our insulative issues are taken care of simply by my physical maintenance. And notice I'm bumping down to how these all tie together. Hydrating and eating isn't about comfort. It's about maintaining performance so that I have the inner tools to not allow this cold weather to get me chilled, hypothermic. Real track?
Hey, Jonah.
Yeah.
In the interest of time, just so we don't run out, would you mind starting to go through your pack a little bit, just to show some of the examples? So I want to make sure we also get to the first aid kit stuff.
Keeping me on track, Miles. Okay, so in the interest of Miles' point, then I'm just going to finish up. So Illumination. These days, it's going to be a headlamp. Simple. I'll show you an option about how we're going really light and fast, but we have some options there. Okay, but we have to solve this problem. Shelter building is either something that we can learn through techniques like in a whooper, you're going to learn how to build things. But it's also something as little as an emergency blanket, which has very limited capacity, or things like bivvies or tents if we're on a camping trip. Fire starting is a way to rejuvenate ourselves if we've gotten cold. Super fundamental that we have that capacity. All we need is a lighter and some wax balls impregnated with something like Vaseline. Prepare kit is the recognition that anything that we're taking with us is essential. We're taking in the backcountry, we're carrying the weight, it needs to function. Snowshoes, if you're treading on 4 feet of snow and it breaks, you can't just walk out. These things have to function for us. So the tools that we're using, we have to be able to make work. So it used to be just a knife. Now we have really great little multi-tools. Communication is, as a rescuer, my pet peeve. We have to be able to initiate emergency response when indicated. Without that, there is no response. Absolutely critical that we have some tool. So we talked about the cell phone, one. A tool that Miles and a lot of other people use are personal locator beacons. Look how small and light this thing is. I'm going to pass it around. Don't push any buttons. But you can see that it's going to win some of our categories by being small and light, and it's going to be effective, and it's going to be a good choice because it's mandated that we be able to get this done. So along with that, sometimes all of our preventive tools don't get it right, or things just happen around us that are beyond our control. To mitigate those, we have a first aid kit, and that's going to be the second part. We're going to look at what some of this looks like. But I also want to add, and you're going to see it here, I'll talk about it, is that with our 10 essentials, we need to prioritize our safety. One way to do that is every trip being different. Think about what safety tools you need for the endeavor that you're undergoing on any particular day. If I'm going on a mountaineering trip, I need to make sure that I don't forget my helmet. If I'm going on a ski mountaineering trip, I might think about my ski crampons. If I'm going skiing in general, I need my beacon shovel, my probes. Okay? But keeping in mind that when we look at what essentially your base pack is, this is sort of my example. It needs these things in it pretty much every time. And that's why I like my 11. I can forget a lot of other stuff, but I need to remember what my personal protective equipment is for my particular thing. And that has nothing to do a lot with those other things. My ski crampons aren't on the list. Are they? Okay, so everything that I've just gone through weighs about 18 pounds. I don't know. Honestly, I haven't weighed it properly. It'd be interesting to really see, but it's not heavy, and it can fit in a very small pack. Okay, I choose often to use a really big pack, because this is our base stuff. Everything else, the rope, the harness, the food, the tent, anything else is going to go on top of what I've already chosen to take. But on a casual backpacking trip, that's all I need. I've got it all. So, we'll talk about some specifics. I think the best way to do this.
Yeah, people can stand up and gather around. As long as you don't block the camera, feel free to move around.
So for ease of access, most backpacks have a lid. Now we're getting away from that more and more, but I don't like it there, so I just took it off. And I use it as a catch-all for several items that we'll get into in a moment. But in devising your kit, you'll understand you'll have this one big stuff sack that sits on top of your pack often, and it houses a lot of that stuff. But a big pack has the ability of being more versatile than other things because I can always make it smaller, I can make it bigger, so I can be expansive and I can access things. Carrying water is pretty straightforward. Carrying food is also going to be somewhat straightforward. Look at that. Not very much stuff. It seems like that's about it. Okay? Not entirely true. There's a caveat. But I take my insulative stuff really seriously. I'm also a very skinny guy. So being able to fluctuate what I'm wearing to meet my exertion is really important. So a puppy and a shell are going to be in here every single time, all the time. And you just sort of bound them up. They don't need extra bags. You don't need anything. You don't even need to bind them up if you want. This is a giant stuff sack. Okay? But the important bit is that the best way to manage our heat loss is the things that we can easily take on and off as we're traveling. Our hands are our point of dexterity. We need to be able to initiate any type of rescue, we need to be able to use our hands. So gloves are critical because they make that happen. But over 10% of our heat loss comes from our head. So something this size, tiny, it's light, it's just a little hat. But not a huge, fat, woolly hat. It's really thin material. This one is, they're called buffs or whatever. Right, but it's either a headscarf, a hat, you can do kind of whatever you want with it. You can put it over what you're wearing. And you get a little bit hot, you can just drop it down. Ball it up and put it in your pocket. So something like this is going to be really handy to being able to, because I can just shove it in my pocket and I never have to stop. So these tools are really fundamental to being able to keep yourself functioning at a high level. But notice how thin they are. Really, really thin stuff. If we want big stuff, then you're going to have to look at our bulkier items. The fact that in the wintertime, I'm probably going to keep a pair of mitts without any insulation in here. Never use them on myself, but I always use them on other people. And instead of having insulation for them, you can actually just have a spare pair of socks. Because all you need to do is poke a little hole in them, you can put them on your hands and put them in mitts, and now you've got a pretty well insulated mitt. But foot blisters and all this sort of thing, and dry socks can really change the game. But in here, we also have shelter. And so a versatile way to create shelter is either a simple tarp, or in this case, it's just a poncho. The reason why a poncho is good is because A, you can tie the cord to a tree and make a shelter. There's also a walking shelter. You can walk around in it. Because what you're going to learn, if you haven't learned already, is that Gore-Tex is not really work. It's nice in theory, but in practice it's something very different. And so having a Gore-Tex jacket and then putting this on top is going to give you that sort of insulative effect from both wind and rain. And when you have to leave someone behind, you can cover them up in this, you can crouch down with it, you can do anything that you want with it, and it's very, very versatile. It's probably $10 at, Army Navy. Old military thing. But they're also small and light, so it's pretty effective. But remember, I've got all this stuff in my pack, and if this gets wet, it's losing a ton of its utility. The point is to keep us warm, and all fabrics need to be dry to do that at its most effectiveness. That's highest ethics. I'll let this out. These are the little nets that are empty. So they don't take up much room. And honestly, in summertime, I'd probably make a decision to take these out. And I would put this in. What is that? Yeah. Is this a life-saving intervention? Probably not. But does it make you a lot more comfortable in the backcountry when the bugs are really bad? And what is the price that I pay for it? It has no cost, it has no size, it has no weight, it has no negative benefits. What we're getting into now are sort of the principles and limitations of the things that we carry. We can't carry everything that we want. They have to meet certain criteria. And certain tools are things that you can choose when they have no weight, no cost, and have a high impact on the quality of our travel. And we're going to be psyched about it. What's this all about? Who carries a pack cover? Today, if you don't have a pack cover, you probably should. But B, if you don't have a pack cover, you shouldn't, because this is far, far more versatile. The words I'm repeating should be versatility even on my board.
Yeah, right there, no limitations.
Limitations? Oh, there we go, thank you. You shouldn't find one thing on this table that has one use. I've got to be able to get a lot of things done. And this does a lot, because I can pack everything in this pack inside of it and keep it dry. However, if I get to a tenting spot and I need to dump all my stuff into something else, I can put it all in here. You can put a bunch of snow in it, put it in the sun, and it'll melt it and catch it. If I don't have a bib or anything else, you can cut a hole in it and make a sort of a poncho out of it. Or you can put your feet in it if you're sleeping on the ground on your backpack. So these things are highly useful. If you have an emergency, then it's a biomass bag. Okay, so 12 different things. This is actually a contractor bag, garbage compactor bag. This is more durable, it lasts longer. I tried using a dog food bag once. Aside from the quite right, it's really weight. Okay, so this is backpacks. One really important thing that you need to realize about backpacks is that when it comes to first aid, you want to be able to get your body substance isolation, things that you need immediately to be able to touch blood very, very quickly. And if you have a lid like this, there's often a zipper on the back where you could get that done. I'm jumping ahead, but I want to be able to put this down. In this pack, there's a little pouch right here. And what you need to know is that as we move forward medically, there's no reason that we shouldn't be able to access our little blue gloves really, really quickly. They're at the very bottom of my pack. I'm going to freak out, and I'm just going to forget about them. I'm just not going to take the time to try to dig them out and find them. Start shoving these things into every little pocket, every little thing, anywhere, so that all you have to do is just reach your hand in the pocket, and then you'll have the thing that you need to protect yourself. Now we can get started. My partner can dump this out of the ground, and I can start doing a patient assessment, which for some of us is going to be sort of beyond maybe where we are at training currently, but that's where we're going. And so I make sure that in all of my kits, I have immediate access to my body substance isolation. This is an automotive kit, and what you see tag sitting out on the outside are blue gloves. Also tag is my safety, which is high vis for working on the side of the road. And then trauma shears to be able to access an injury. Right? So it's how we organize our things that make them useful. Because you're going to have to learn what's in there so you know how to use it. Because some of my great failures when I was younger was having the tools and not knowing that I had them, so I couldn't apply them. This is why we don't buy pre-made med kits. We build them ourselves, which is ultimately where we're going with this lecture. How do you boil this all down into something simple so that, A, you guys can pack your good stuff that's usable, that you like and makes you happy, and keeps you safe and keeps you functioning, but that when things go wrong, we can abide by some of the things that I've been sort of hinting at and moving into the things that need to be inside of the first aid kit. Because for me, on a general day-to-day basis, it all boils down to something about this size, more or less. The first aid kit only has to do certain things well. The only thing it has to do is save somebody's life. That's the bottom line. That's the day that's either going to give us something to be proud about or to always regret. And maybe that day never comes for you, but you will remember it when it does. And either starting from this lecture or from some other, recognize that you're going to have the skills to be able to do it. To know that you've given everything that you had in this particular moment. But you also have to have the tools. And so when we start talking about first aid kit, we're not doing the REI special. We're doing something that can do this first. And we're going to need to be able to do that. We need an emergency response tool. At this point, I think we don't all have in this classroom. Who's done a wilderness first aid? A couple of us. Wilderness first responder, wilderness CNT. Those are sort of three wilderness grades. Has anyone done it, like just basic first aid? Like urban first aid? Some of the same principles. But this kit serves that assessment. We need to know how to use the tools to sort of make them useful. So we need the training to be able to get that. And I assume that that's sort of where we're going, Miles, all right? And we're going to have to talk about that assessment so you see how you build your kit based on what you want to accomplish. Because an emergency assessment is generally going to be solving just a couple major problems. The ABCs. This is airway, breathing, and circulation. These are the fundamentals, to some degree, that we need to always manage, at least be able to assess and make sure that they're functioning. So I'm going to go into a little more depth, given the time, and we're going to see that it's somewhat simple. But you don't find them in most first aid kits. Airway management has to do with a technique of a head lift, chin, Jesus. Head tilt, chin lift. As one, or a jaw thrust, which is another technique that you use. These are manual training techniques that I don't need tools for. However, moving on in more advanced medicine, we might use an oropharyngeal airway or a nasopharyngeal airway to be able to keep the tongue from falling back in the mouth. When someone has no muscular tone, they're unconscious, they're going to lose muscle tone, and the tongue is the number one oral obstruction. So we need to be able to think about that. Breathing is not something that we're easily going to sort out because we're not carrying oxygen in the backcountry. And we're probably not going to be carrying a bag valve max, which is a positive pressure tool that we use to breathe for a patient. But we can carry a face shield that allows us to do ventilation for a patient. But the consideration there is our safety. So if what I'll call my primary survey has to do with ABCs, in the wilderness, what we're going to do is manage our safety and our environment aggressively. So allow me to sort of bump through here a little bit quickly. On number one, I'm looking at scene safety. 2, what happened to you? I'm going to look at the nature of the illness, the mechanism of injury. 3, I'm getting into my BSI, body substance isolation. 4 is resources. And 5 is general impression, which I'm not going to worry about. Now, I'm telling you this because it's important. I don't like to write and talk at the same time. Because we need to manage our safety. And the first thing that we're going to have to do in building a kit is making sure that that is alleviated. So as we look at kits, we already said that our gloves are paramount. So we're going to have not just one set of gloves, but numerous, because we're going to put them on so hard that we're going to rip them off the second they get off. So then we're going to start putting the second pair on. And we're going to breathe more adequately this time, and we're not going to destroy the gloves. So I have begun to take care of myself, which is my concern here. Scene safety has more to do with me being patient, making sure that I see everything that's around me and I'm not entering a scene that's dangerous. That's why in an urban environment, it would be an important consideration to use high vis. High visibility like the best. Road flares would be something we have in our car, because it's taking this into account. So does that make clear that this assessment is gauging what I put in my first aid kit? Because those are the things we have to accomplish. Our automobile. How restrained are we on the size in our car? Can we have space in an automobile to carry a lot of stuff? We do. What if we're trail running? How much do we want to carry when we're kind of moving fast? Significantly less. So this is an example of an automotive first aid kit. This is an example of what you would take trail running. This or something like this. Because we can run with that. That's reasonable. And there's no one in the backcountry more vulnerable than long-distance trail runners. For the very reason I just stated. You're carrying the least amount of stuff. You have the capacity to go some 15 miles or whatever away from a trailhead. So you're very distant. So you're very vulnerable. And if you think that you're above these type of injuries or situations, you're wrong. The worst patient I ever saw in backcountry was a trail runner. Slid down a huge snowfield with a bunch of rocks. Head injuries, cervical spine injuries, internal bleeding, and he's lucky that he was alive. He came after a year. So to accomplish getting the tools that we want, we have to sort of meet these protocols. It can't be that big. We don't have room for it. It doesn't matter how much we want it. We're not getting that traction splint or the cardiac monitor. It's not going to happen. And we can't afford the cardiac monitor. And it's not even going to save anyone's life anyhow. It's a great tool to get vital signs, but it's not essential. So we have to weigh these things with the reality of being able to accomplish our goals. And essentially those look like this. Because am I going sort of, what if I'm walking around in the Philippines, for instance? It's really dusty, it's really hot. They train really good nurses, but it's a remote environment. Do my concerns about everything that we've been talking about, are they relevant in the Philippines? Would you feel comfortable walking around with nothing in the Philippines? No, because the problems are the same. You don't know about medical direction. You don't know about the quality of the services or how fast they can get there, anything else. The environment is still potentially unknown, and therefore, as far as you know, potentially hazardous. I lived in the Philippines for a while, and I carried a shoulder bag with all my same medical equipment that I carry in the backcountry here. Because I get things in my eye all the time, and I don't know how to get help there. I can't call 911. So the environment, whether it's a mountainous winter environment or a summer tropical environment in Brazil is relevant to how we organize and work with these tools. Am I treating myself, or am I treating 12 other people and I'm responsible for the whole party? I'm going to need more gauze, more beds, more things of this type. For how long? Same problem. I don't want to run out. But whether I'm skiing or whether I'm trail running is very important. And keeping in mind that this is an easy problem to solve. It's actually not that hard. We're going to solve these problems, bounce off that, by essentially recognizing what tools we need to do our emergency response. We buy those, we put them in a box or a bag, and then we can start outfitting our specific med kits with the same tools that we need to do an emergency assessment, but tweaked specifically for our environment, for athletics. And the challenge is just managing what is where, because maybe we don't own 4 headlamps. But with the cost of equipment now, we can actually get it done. It's pretty easy to buy 2 or 3. They're like $15. And a lot of this equipment isn't getting used over and over again. You don't use roller gauze, every year because you're not seeing that many big leaks. So it's easy to kind of get it, stock it, and then manage it. But those are the things that we have to be worried about. The last part of this is saying, do I know I have a specific problem that could crop up and be an emergency? I speak with a guy who has a history of seizures. I've never seen him have a seizure. He hadn't had one in like 10 years. But he tells all of his partners, by the way, I have a history of epilepsy. It's good to know. It's really respectful. It's the right thing to do. And that way, we can talk about what kind of response he would want if he went into a seizure. Do I need medications? No, it doesn't actually change my med kit. It does change my potential response. Okay, I have this history. This is what works for me. This is what I need. A good example would be diabetic. So, okay, are you more likely to go hypoglycemic? Is that what's going to happen? Do you take what's most effective? Do you like honey, blah, 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 and have those discussions? In that case, you're going to make sure that you carry numerous honey packets in your first aid kit, as you should anyway. But now you have direct causation. Anaphylaxis. Okay, that's an EpiPen. That's a specific medication that needs to have a prescription. So now we have legal challenges to how we can provide the care that I'm essentially mandating that you manage. You guys have any questions? Miles?
Yeah, so can you show what you brought in your mini first aid kit? And I think then we can start passing around some of the bags that we pre-made so that people can get a look at what we have, start thinking about that.
Why don't we just go through it, because we're going to have extra so we can put more in.
Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm just going to move some stuff out of the way. This is where the art comes into it. So 10 essentials are one thing. We're going to use the tools that we have. We're going to find some things. But to manage your ABCs effectively and do it in a way that's essentially palatable to your shoulders in the way we carry it, we need to sort of learn some techniques with finding ways to repackage and manage things that come in bulkier quantities and minimize them. So ABCs, I'm going to do a dump because this is sort of weird. ABCs are somewhat simple. There's only one tool that I can use for airway other than training, and that's essentially an NPA. So this is something that we would, with training, be able to insert in someone's nose to help keep their the airway open. Okay? We're also going to have essentially a way to breathe for them. So if we're doing CPR, we need some type of face shield. We have larger face shields that take up a lot of space, and you would find in like a car kit, or you can get very simple masks, which we have some here actually. So you're creating barriers, so we're protecting ourselves, and we're still able to help ventilate a patient. So we're simply getting through A and B. C is trickier. The best thing in C is really good training on how to manage direct pressure. because that's the first part of our bleeding control is direct pressure. And then we have an option whether we go with a tourniquet or whether we go with a pressure dressing. So in either case, not either case, but in the case of a pressure dressing, we're going to put out as much padding as we can, and then we're going to aggressively wrap gauze over that to create pressure on an isolated point to manage that bleeding. The point of contention is that right in this kit, which is not an entire kit, it's part of a kit, you don't see a tourniquet. That's because I am, at this point today, now making the choice to use a big bandage like this that I can wrap around and improvise a tourniquet, as long as I have some type of a bar to use as a windlass. Okay, so you can do a high like this, get it really tight, make a knot here, put in some strong windlass, and I can occlude all blood flow. In the backcountry setting, sometimes we're making that choice, sometimes not. I'll show you that every other day I'll have this tourniquet in by. Which I imagine Miles carries is called a swap tourniquet because it's very small, it's somewhat light, heavier than my liking lot, but it's also very easy to use and it's more versatile. I can wrap a fracture with this. So this is called a swap tourniquet. But in any other kit, what you're going to find is that there's no reason not to carry a specific tool for the job. So this is just an industrial-made tourniquet with a constricting band. It goes through here, and a windlass bar. For the wilderness, it is the appropriate tool for bleeding control. We have to be able to either have one of these or know that we can improvise it quickly. The patient can bleed out and die in 3 minutes. So how good is your improvisation? It better be something that you have a plan for. Because you don't need to plan for this. You can get that on instantly. Something else that's an interesting side note that's a choice is hemostatic agents. So this is very small, very light. In fact, I'll pass both of these around. And it arguably has a place. It's just a very specific wound that it treats. A deep puncture wound, somewhere like a femoral artery, is very challenging. A chainsaw injury, for instance, where it's going to be very hard to get a tourniquet on. We need very good direct pressure and packing, and hemostatic agents are now need to be very safe, reliable. They're used in the military, and you can get it at Rite Aid. Not to mention Amazon. Not that kind, but essentially a hemostatic powder. I saw it at Rite Aid. So they've gone mainstream, and this is no longer aggressive or controversial medicine in the way that it has been in the past. Okay, so this is how I'm getting in small kits. Because you can say this would be a mountaineering kit where bleeding control is a serious concern. We have to be able to have 4x4 gauze pads. All this stuff are pads that help catch blood because we're trying to make a clot. We're trying to help the body do what it wants to do anyway. Essentially, direct pressure, gauze, it's all aimed towards getting the body to do what it does. And so it's one of our mandates that in any kit, and including your kits, it's going to be based on these 3 principles. Because going forward from there, now we're choosing to consider certain types of situation. In my environment where I'm worried about tooth injuries, and I might carry a cabot or something specific. I'm doing a lot of hiking and I'm worried about blisters. Well, I can carry something specific for blisters. But now we're getting away from essentially managing life threats to treating illness and injury, which is more traditional for first aid kits. It's going to be the bulk of what you have. Sunscreen. How about iodine tablets? But iodine tablets come in nice big bottles. So do pain relievers. Really big pill bottles. That's not small and condensed. So what we're going to do is we're going to find that if I take floss, little floss guys, pull the floss out, and put pain beds in there, now I've got something very small, something very refillable, something manageable. To where this is how we get our kit size to being really small. But what we need to learn is really good respect for medications and understanding that A, it's probably illegal, B, we need to have proper labels so we can do our 6 rights. I need to know exactly what's in here, exactly what the dose is, exactly what my contraindications are, et cetera, et cetera. I need to know that information every single time. You're trained to be medical professionals. That is our mandate, regardless whether it's over-the-counter drugs or your personal prescriptions. Know what you have, know how to use it appropriately. You need to choose to take it out of its bottle. You're taking all that information away. What if you're the incapacitated one? It's your partner that has to use it. Don't count on them to know that you shouldn't take 2 NSAIDs at the same time. Right? Have it well labeled. And these are little ways of doing it. So the world is full of small little containers like that. Because whether it's little pill bottles that shrink your kit size and get your quantities what you need for your trips, or whether it's simply recognizing that as we're sort of running out of time, I'm going to be trained to treat certain medical conditions. And there's certain treatments that are going to apply. So let's bump over. We're only at five minutes.
We're actually getting pretty close. I think we're going to hand out the med kits now, and then we'll take a look at what's inside them, and then whoever wants to hang around, because I know people got other stuff going on, but if you want to hang around and talk a little bit more and answer or ask direct questions to Jonah, we can do that then. So just give me 1 second, let's hand this out.
Wrap up. Okay. So what we've done is we've looked at a certain type of emergency medical assessment, and we're trying to create a kit around solving life threats. What I want to impress upon you is that by making them modular and buying things in bulk, we can keep them in a box at home and then refill. The way in which I came in here, essentially I did the same thing but in a big bag. So that essentially I have all my pill bottles that I need so I can refill things on the fly. So if we get called to a rescue, I can grab a bag and check my kits and make sure I have everything refilled the way it needs to. If you feel to do that, make yourself a checklist. Go on your phone, make a note. Whatever you choose to keep in your first aid kit, write that down in your note so that you can always check against that. So you're not using things and then not replacing them. Accountability is sort of what keeps you balanced on being able to manage this kind of stuff. Okay? And so we'll leave this kind of stuff out to realize, like, this is my pile of stuff. As an EMT, being concerned about life threats, I'll write some of the classic medications that you would carry that solve specific problems. Diphenhydramine for allergic reactions. Aspirin for chest pain. Sugar for diabetes. There's no reason that any of us shouldn't have these fundamental tools in our first aid kits at all times. Because something like diphenhydramine may make all the difference. Whether you can have albuterol or an EpiPen is a broader question that you should be asking yourself, depending on who you're traveling with and so this is the gist of basic first aid kits. I have several different modules out. Training, adding tools like first aid manuals like this. And also the one we use a lot, which is our this is a fantastic text that takes the training that you're getting and puts it into a context so that as your training increases, you'll have more and more tools that you may need depending on the environment that you're going into. Miles, I think I am wrapped up.
Awesome. So, like I said, so anybody wants to stick around afterwards, we can ask some direct questions to Jonah, but I quickly just want to walk through what we've provided you in the bag. So I just walked around and handed 2 cravats or triangular bandages, and these are great. I'll send out a video afterwards of how you can do like a sling and swap technique. You can use these. You can provide a tourniquet, right? You can tie, you can provide splints together with these. These are great, really versatile, like Jonah's talking about. We also have a bunch of gloves. I know everybody has access to nitrile gloves, but you can grab some today and just have them in your first aid kit. Inside the pack itself, I think we've got some Benadryl, which I've been hydramine in here.
We need to get more of that, though, because I thought I bought a bigger box, but it was just enough, like one for everybody. So throw some more Benadryl in there at home, okay? Because 25 milligrams isn't going to do much.
Enough, yeah. So, but the idea is like it's individually packaged, so you can hand it to somebody and not worry about legal consequences. They can open it themselves and take it. Also, some water filtration tablets in here. Everybody has a pen, and then also I got some Right in the Rain tablets that are they come out of like an EMT pad, so it's reminds you of like a patient assessment, right? So the level of consciousness, did you do lung sounds? Just a little kind of like a template for you to fill out. And then we've got these 4x4 sterile gauze pads that Jonah was mentioning for control of bleeding, some bandages, some other pads, and we also have some roller gauze that we're passing out as well.
We have some duct tape if you want to.
Yeah, and so duct tape is always great to kind of secure a bandage or to fix if it's part of your repair kit. So I recommend just taking the pencil you have and wrapping some of the duct tape around that pencil, and then you have at least a certain subset of duct tape that you can work with. So I don't want to keep you guys after. I know everybody's busy, but feel free to ask Jonah any specific questions. I've got some steri stripping supplies up here if anybody's interested in that. But otherwise, at least now you have something to add to your existing first aid kit or something to build your own first aid kit. And you've seen, right, how somebody who's pretty darn experienced in this incorporates those 10 essentials into the gear that they carry. Okay? All right, so thanks for coming. A round of applause for Jonah. But don't feel compelled to stay around. You guys can take off. But if you have questions for Jonah, feel free to ask them or come on out. Thank you. Thank you.
What's that?